All right, all right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Sorry about all the issues. I've had some problems, fans overheating, and that made me reset. And then apparently it kicked all of my audio sources out. And with new equipment today, just problems. It'll take a day or so to figure it out, but I'll spend the weekend doing that. Got new fans coming this weekend that should hopefully fix the issue. But what I was saying was, we still have one of the biggest topics, of the week, of the season. It's going to remain one of the biggest topics of the season, and that is Terry and Arnold in his situation that remains, like I said, the biggest story this morning, this week, next week, in the months to follow. And he does remain in custody, and I do want to make sure we clarify what went down yesterday. And I will bring in that video, and we're going to listen and hear what happened during his appearance. It was said that he appeared like through Zoom or whatever. He was in person, in court. So he has another date set for Monday. And so right now he's going to remain incarcerated until and at which point they decide, bond or bail for the guy, if they're going to allow it. What they've done with the other conspirators in this case is they've been held without any bail for multiple reasons. And I assume that's probably what's going to happen with Terry and Arnold. However, there are some things that his attorney asked for that I will clarify. And then I also want to talk about why he's wearing that green smock and what that really means. So the hearing on Monday is not going to decide on whether he's guilty or innocent. It's going to determine on whether he remains jailed while the case moves forward. For the Lions, the legal process and the football process, they have to remain separate. And there's been, allegations now thrown at Brad Holmes for not doing enough. And, things that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have said publicly that maybe it looks like they have egg on their face. And I don't believe in any of that. I think it's a lot of BS. And like I said, a few moments ago, I don't care what anyone else has said. 91 or 97 won the ticket, or anyone that has come out and completely just tore apart Brad and Dan in this whole thing because of the things that they said. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear with what I'm trying to say. And that is, in an ongoing legal process, one that Terry and Arnold was not part of, for the last 4 months. He was not indicted. He did not have charges against him. He was in the clear, as we had all thought and hoped. Well, a team, a coach, a GM are not going to come to a mic and say anything, right, that is going to put them into a corner or box them into a corner. They really can't say anything. I mean, what can they say? Yeah, spoke to him. This is what he said. This is what we're rolling with. And anything outside of that would be a huge mistake. And so they're not going to say anything that is going to, cast a bad light or a shadow over the team. And I don't think that they did that. I mean, Dan just said, he said what he said. Terrian told me this, and this is what we're going with. Now that's changed, and you won't hear anything from the team because there's nothing that they can say or should say. If at any moment, a coach or a GM or anyone would come to the mic in this situation, that would be the mistake. So I expect that they're going to be doing some things internally. And I also want to point out that, and I said this months ago, that the teams around the league, I mean, they are full of some of the best security personnel in the country. Former FBI, former Homeland Security agents, former police chiefs, whatever it is, attorneys, former attorneys, retired attorneys, whatever their roles used to be, they have the best of the best. And then their active attorney counsel absolutely was able to get everything and anything that they could get. But you have to understand that during a legal process, they may have relationships that can tell them a little bit of information, but you are not allowed to have any of what the prosecutor has, that, discovery, we'll call it, right? Any evidence, you can't have that until the time is right. And we're going to listen to that and why, Terry and Arnold's had mentioned, or Terry and Arnold's attorney mentioned during the process yesterday in court that he was looking for certain things. And I'm going to comment as to why he was looking for certain things. And then also what this green smock is all about. There's been some debates on why he's wearing what is considered a turtle suit. And so we'll come back to that. Look, Detroit can't determine guilt or innocence. We can't determine guilt or innocence. And I know that the public court of opinion is different, right? It's everyone thinks that they're an internet sleuth and everyone thinks that they know, what the right answer is. They don't. I don't. It's all based on opinion. And here we try to uncover fact and we try to deliver facts so we can separate the bullshit from what's really going on. Right now, Brad and Dan just need to prepare the roster for the possibility that Arnold will not be available, and I'm expecting that he's not going to be available, at least at this point, unless his attorney is able to do something that is largely not done in cases like this. So I believe that this has opened also that big debate. I mean, you guys have seen it online. You've seen it on Twitter or whatever your preferred social media is. Brad didn't do enough. So I want to talk about that today and why he did do enough. And we're going to roll through everything that I kind of touched on yesterday as to why this room seems to be in a much better situation. Even without Terry and Arnold, it's going to be in a great situation. So did Brad Holmes fail to prepare the secondary for this possibility? He couldn't have failed. Why? Because Terry and Arnold wasn't charged. And it's not like he can see the future, right? No GM, no coach can see the future. You can only do what you can do, right? You can only control what you can control. And there are things that are outside of your control each and every single day. And in this case, this is out of the control of the team, right? It's out of the control of Dan Campbell. It's out of the control of Brad Holmes and Sheila Hamp and everybody else. You know, they have to deal with whatever this court is going to decide, and that's it. So did Holmes really spend the entire offseason building enough veteran depth and the possibility that, you know, they have enough positional versatility to absorb the unexpected loss? That's the question. And I think that we need to look to the roster to answer that question. So we're going to examine both sides of that argument today. We will also break down, you know, every cornerback, safety currently on the Detroit Lions roster, explain how the NFC North offenses may attack, you know, the uncertainty, at least for right now, and look at how maybe Derek Moore could potentially add some help in this, you know, to the secondary in this case through the pass rush. And I think that that's going to be a turning point this season. I think that the pass rush now, even without Terry and Arnold, I think that the Lions are okay. But I think that now you're probably going to go to the pass rush a little bit more to make sure that your DBs don't get torched and they have enough, you know, of an opportunity to win, you know, their matchups each and every day. So we will turn to the offense. ESPN has ranked the Detroit Lions skill positions number 1. Kind of funny that I said that all week long. I don't see another offense in this league that has a better offensive collection of skill players, and they are first in the NFL. So we'll touch on that this morning. We're also going to touch on Sam Laporta and the Kyle Pitts contract. I mentioned yesterday I was hoping to do a video. Yesterday kind of turned into a shit show. We ended up losing our bid on this amazing home, so kind of put the brakes to everything last night. Was not in a great mood. Not in a great mood about it today. I feel like the other individual involved just did not help us the way that they should have. But that's why I'm going to go get my license, because this is never going to happen again. The numbers do suggest that Sam Laporta has a legitimate case to move above Pitt, so we'll break that down, and he might become the first $20 million tight end in the NFL. Let's talk about Arnold first. Let's get that out of the way. The newest confirmed development in the Terry and Arnold case is that he will remain in custody through the weekend. Arnold does appear virtually, or they said that he appeared virtually. He did not. He was in person in the Hillsborough County, in front of the Hillsborough County judge on Thursday. Now, there was a lot of conversation or things that were being mentioned about that green suit, and I did a little internet sleuthing myself. Came to find out that garment, that's not a regular jail shirt. Everyone else in the room was wearing orange. It's a protective type of vest. But what is it a protective vest of? There was some mention that maybe it was a body armor. And from what I found out, and I hate to even say this word, but it's an anti-SUA, you know what I'm going to say next, safety smock, commonly called a turtle suit. So reporting from Terry and Arnold's court appearance specifically identified it as an anti-SUI, you-know-what smock. So the smock is thick, it's quilted, it's tear-resistant, and it cannot easily be ripped, twisted, or rolled into a rope or ligature. So when you think of the other, you know, EpiPen case, that's what they were trying to prevent with that individual as well. Clearly, it didn't happen. My question is, why on earth is he under that kind of a watch? Did he say something? Was something said? I don't understand it. But jails generally use this for detainees placed under a self-harm or a SUI prevention precaution. So instead of giving them the normal orange uniform, the little, the orange jumpsuit or red jumpsuit or whatever color jumpsuit they have in that jail. This doesn't prove that Arnold has attempted anything. It doesn't prove explicitly that he threatened to do harm to himself, but a jail can issue one during intake following a mental health screening. So I can't comment any further on that. I don't know what that screening, entailed. I don't know what came of it, but it is kind of concerning that he is in something that normally you wouldn't expect of an individual, or at least someone that, appears publicly all the time to be just a normal, happy individual. But this could lean into something that the staff observed while they were doing an interview. It could be simple precautionary, that it's a highly stressful event. It's a very public arrest, and the officials have not publicly explained the specific reason Arnold was placed in it. And I did reach out this morning. I don't know if they're going to answer me or not, but I did reach out as to why he was placed in it. So we'll see if I get an email back. They have worked with me in the past, and they have given me information in the past with Cam Sutton. So we'll see if we can find out. The basic answer on this: he's not wearing an orange suit because the jail had him in a special safety garment, and we don't know why. So that's a bit concerning for me this morning. Let's move right into the video of yesterday's event with Terry and Arnold. Break that down a little bit, and then let's put this to bed for the day. I know it's not going to go to bed overall, but kind of getting sick of talking about it because it's so negative, right? It's so negative, and I don't want to glorify it. I just hope everything works out for the kid. All right, so here's yesterday's in-person hearing, if you will. Now, this was some sort of a first appearance for Terry and Arnold in this case. He was lucky enough to be first in this case, so they at least gave him a little bit of leeway to get this done and over with. But let's go and hear what Judge Logan Murphy had to say, and then his attorney. What did Terry and Arnold's attorney ask for, and why? And why that he asked for those things and may not get those things, and how that could be critical for Monday.
All right, my first case today is page 79, Terry and Arnold.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Justin Diaz for the state.
And for the defense, please.
Yes, Timothy Jansen on behalf of Mr. Arnold, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. Is your microphone on? Just to make sure it's a green light on.
It was not on. It is on now.
Why don't you state your appearance one more time?
Timothy Jansen on behalf of Mr. Arnold.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnold, you're charged with 4 counts of robbery with a firearm or deadly weapon less than $750, and 4 counts of kidnapping to harm or terrorize.
Judge, I need to clarify, one of those counts that you just read off for each of the charges is actually a conspiracy count. It's 3 armed robberies, 3 counts of kidnapping, and a conspiracy to kidnap and a conspiracy for armed robbery.
I see that. I apologize. So for the purposes of our docket today, because the warrant has already determined probable cause at those levels, count number 7 will be conspiracy to commit robbery with a firearm, a felony of the 2nd degree. And count number 8, this is as in the warrant, is conspiracy to commit kidnapping to harm or terrorize, a felony 2nd. Sorry, Mr. Diaz, go ahead.
Your Honor, we filed a pretrial detention motion. I know that we sort of preliminarily discussed when you'd be available for Monday morning for a hearing.
All right. And you only filed on the 6 PBLs, is that right?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. Jansen, at this stage, I'll hear any objections you have to the facial sufficiency of the motion, since probable cause has already been determined by a judge in issuing the warrant.
Yes, Judge, I understand that the probable cause has already been established, and they filed their motion. We are asking, he's absolutely denying these allegations, and we're asking to have a bond hearing as soon as possible. I believe 9:30 on Monday is appropriate.
Okay.
And we can be ready for that.
Okay.
However, Judge, I do want to make one thing for the record. In reviewing the pre-trial detention order and the charges, it appears that much, if not all, of these charges against my client rely on the testimony of 2 co-defendants who entered pleas recently. We would ask that the court have the government give us a copy of those pleas prior to the detention hearing, because we believe it may be Brady material. And we would also ask that their prior statements that were made when they were arrested be disclosed, because that may contain Brady information for the detention hearing.
Okay. You're not entitled to any discovery before a pretrial detention hearing. If you'd like to re-raise that with the judge who's handling the hearing, I'll be happy to address that. I'm going to deny that request at this time. But, you may want to talk to Mr. Diaz and then talk with Chief Judge Sabella. If you'd like a continuance, you have the right to request that under Rule 3.13.
Okay, so this is huge. Let me give you the research based analysis on this. So when an attorney asks for pleas, initial interviews, and statements, because these files often contain Brady information, it's evidence that the government possesses that is favorable to the defendant. And that's what he's hoping to find. So by law, prosecutors must turn over this information to ensure a fair trial. The question is, when is the defense allowed to get these documents to prevent what could be, a long period of incarceration before a trial? So the exculpatory evidence that he's looking for, the initial interviews or the police notes, might contain statements from victims or witnesses that point directly to the defendant's innocence, not his guilt. So that's exactly what he's looking for right now. He's trying to trip up what the prosecutor is trying to put together here and say, all right, well, let's look at what they said initially. If they said that Terry and Arnold wasn't involved initially, well, why would they change their mind now, right? And if he can prove that, then he can prove that this is what they said from day one, and the only reason why they're changing their story now is because they're looking for a lesser sentence. So that's exactly the reason why he's asked for it. Now, this judge, I can't speak to whether, this is common practice in Florida or Michigan or anywhere else. Typically, discovery doesn't happen until discovery. But in this case, the Brady material that he's looking for is hopefully he's trying to impeach, right? Find impeachment material to impeach the witnesses so that he can then prove that his client is, in fact, innocent. If a witness changed their story, if they change between their initial police interview and then their later testimony or plea hearing, the defense can use that earlier statement to challenge their credibility, and that's what this is all about. They've already mentioned the fact that these are felons, right? Convicted felons, and individuals that have gone through this trial process, and it's vital for negotiating the plea deal or arguing for a reduced sentence for Terry and Arnold if, in fact, he does go through and end up becoming guilty for any portion of this case. So, uncovering all of the hidden details is really important. So every police report, every body cam footage, it's really going to help advocate for Terry and Arnold in this case. And that's a smart attorney that he's looking to get these things. Whether or not he gets it before Monday, I think it's a long shot, but I'm not an attorney. So, and I don't know what relationships they have. I don't even know who this attorney is, right? Obviously, he's probably a Florida attorney. And maybe not. I mean, he could be an attorney that is licensed in all different states and was highly recommended for TA. I hope that they have, a fairly large legal team, to handle these things. And I assume that they do, especially with the kind of money that TA has. I'm sure this is going to cost him a pretty penny, no matter what. It's going to be super expensive to defend himself against, these types of counts. So now let's play the rest of it. And then I'm going to jump into the difference as to why the conspiracy charge may or may not hold some legit value for TA later.
Too.
I understand.
I'm not sure at this point it's proper for me to order the state to do that, given the rules that are in place for a pretrial detention hearing. But I certainly appreciate that request, Mr. Jansen, and I'll deny it at this time without prejudice to re-raising that issue to the extent you feel it's necessary for preparing for the hearing. Okay.
Right, Judge. And our problem is if we file the motion and have a hearing on it, it'll delay our hearing.
I understand that. I understand. All right. So because there's no objections to the facial sufficiency of the motion, the rule requires me to set a hearing within 5 days on the state's motion for pretrial detention. So, Mr. Arnold, because you've been arrested on 6 dangerous crimes under Section 907.
Okay, so that's also another major point. So when his attorney, and I forget his name already, but when his attorney mentioned, well, if I do file a motion, and that motion will delay the opportunity to have this hearing for pretrial detention, that judge just fired back and said, well, legally I have to schedule it within 5 days. So right there, that tells you that if this attorney can't get his hands on this information over the weekend, like today or over the weekend, then if he does have to file a motion, this could push out Monday's pretrial detention hearing, and it could push it out to Friday or the following Monday for Terry and Arnold to then, get determined whether the state of Florida is going to, in fact, hold him. So it's very important information. And I'm glad that, we're able to tell the truth here in the facts, because not everyone's doing that right now. There's a lot of people out there that are just really, really throwing TA and the Lions under the bus, and I think it's irresponsible, to say the least. Do some simple research, man. Like, it's not that hard, to do some research. So
First-degree felonies categorized as dangerous crimes and punishable by life in prison. You are going to be held at no bond on those charges until we can have a hearing on the state's motion for pretrial detention. That hearing is going to be Monday, June the 29th at 9:30 in the morning in courtroom 1 in front of Chief Judge Sabella. If the parties have any issues before then, including tomorrow, you can raise them with my office. I'll coordinate with Chief Judge Sabella, and I'll be happy to address them in any way that I can, okay?
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
that's it. So Monday is the expected date. Again, unless something changes and this attorney is able to actually get his hands on some information that could, help to impeach the witnesses and provide, some more light into the situation for Terry and Arnold, we could find out Monday. Then it could be a week from Monday if he has to file a motion to have an intermediate hearing about exculpatory evidence and Brady material that could be, involved in this case that could help, lend to TA becoming innocent. But now let's talk about conspiracy. So initially, it was read that TA was facing 8 charges, and he was facing, charges of armed robbery with a firearm under 750. And then he was also charged with kidnapping, 4 counts each. That's what was read. That was what was put out early. It has now been changed to 3 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of armed robbery with a firearm under 750. Now, the under 750, it carries weight, but it doesn't carry weight. I think that anytime you're over $100, it's an automatic felony. I thought it used to be over 1,000, but either way, armed robbery is armed robbery, and that can carry up to life in prison. So I looked up Michigan court rules, and then I also looked up some of the Florida statutes. So under Florida law, the offenses are governed by the Florida statute 77704 and 81213, which is robbery, and the first one was criminal conspiracy. And then also Florida statute 78701, which is kidnapping. So under the conspiracy to commit armed robbery with a firearm, the primary statute in Florida says that committing a robbery while carrying a firearm. Hold on, let me get this back in front of me. Hold on. It says the primary statute under Florida law, committing a robbery while carrying a firearm or a deadly weapon is a first-degree felony, punishable by up to life in prison. The monetary value, such as being under 750, does not really reduce the severity of the charge. The use of force and a firearm overrides standard theft thresholds. And then the conspiracy modification. So if the underlying offense is a first-degree felony punishable by up to life, the act of conspiracy now drops that charge to a second-degree felony. And that is a great opportunity for Terry and Arnold in this case. If he was guilty for any of these charges, if the 2 conspiracy charges were the ones that stuck and the other 6 go away, which is what I'm expecting immediately to happen. And I'm not saying because he's innocent or guilty. I'm just saying I'm expecting that type of a plea, that type of arrangement would probably happen, that the other, 6, charges will go away, and then the 2 conspiracy charges could stick. And those carry second-degree felonies. So the penalty then for a second-degree felony is huge because it drops it from life in prison to now a maximum penalty of 15 years in state prison and a fine up to $10,000. The fine is no big deal for TA, but 15 years, career's over. But then you get to plea from there. So 15 years, what is the minimum sentence and how long would he have to stay in? So he's facing, at a minimum, on the conspiracy charges alone, up to 30 years in prison to life. So 30 years in prison minimum to life. Now, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a judge. I'm giving you information based on research. Please make sure you consult your own attorneys or do your own research if you want more information. I think that he has a chance. If somehow this were to get pled down, we've already seen where, Ariana Del Val, I believe is her name, that she has pled everything down to 4 years. 4 years. And 6 years of probation or whatever. That's massive because she was right in the middle of all this and should have been charged with life in prison on 6+ counts. So if she was able to plead all the way down to 4 years by throwing TA under the bus, I think that TA should be able to plead everything down as well. But if he is the ringleader, if that's what they come up with, then it's probably going to be pretty bad. A completed armed robbery triggers a mandatory minimum sentence under the Florida statute of 10 to 20 to life. So he's facing at a minimum of 10, and then you have the threshold of 15 for the conspiracy. So we'll see where it goes. I really don't know, y'all. I really don't know how he's going to wiggle out of this unless his attorney is able to impeach the witnesses for their initial statements. And I can't believe that the judge in this case, the chief judge in this case, is not going to want to make sure that everything is handled properly. Look, we've seen people get railroaded before. It happens way too often. This is a very public case, and I think that the chief judge is going to want to make sure that everything is done to the nth degree, because it could look poorly, upon that courthouse if they let him slide, or it could look poorly if they don't follow the laws, and it's going to be in the public. And if that judge turns out to be, now I'm not saying this, but if there is corrupt acts, on the prosecutor side or the state of Florida, that could look really bad. Not that it'll matter, because they seem to always get away with it. Prosecutors are expected to argue, every point, and I think that at least right now they're on a good, plan, to try to get this information and move it forward. So the talking points for today on Terry and Arnold: he will remain without bail at least until Monday, and it could be a further court date if he has to file a motion. Like I said, the detention hearing is Monday at 9:30. We're hoping to be live for that. The hearing does concern custody, not guilt. Arnold denies involvement. Detroit can assume the case will be resolved before camp, or cannot assume that the case will be resolved before camp. Nor does it matter if TA is not released before camp, if he's still in prison or if he's still in jail, in county, whatever, and he's not released before camp. I think that the Lions could potentially move on. The legal process and the roster prep are separate responsibilities. We're going to talk about that next. So my question to you to end, this topic here on TA today is: should the Lions wait for Monday's hearing before making any additional roster moves or any moves with Terry and Arnold? Next up, I do have some audio.
TJ, you were deep
here. Whoops. I do have some audio here from Speakeasy, and former football players weighed in on this, and I think maybe it would be a good time to maybe roll through some of this and hear what they had to say. I'm going to listen to it live with you guys, and then just kind of make our arguments based on what they say. So let's take a listen here to Speakeasy and what they had to say.
TJ, you were DB, bruh. So I know this might hit home for you. Speak to this. I'll respond after.
Man, this is a totally unfortunate situation, man. Young kid coming into his dream, some allegedly got robbed for some things and allegedly did all this that was just stated, but this is like it's an error of these young kids, right? And I don't know if it's the no snitching or you don't want to call the police, so you go in to handle it yourself. Allegedly, it just don't make no sense to me. Like, it don't make no sense. You wait till you're in the NFL. You got everything ahead of you. Now, have they been the greatest first 3 years of your life or of your career? No. You dealt with some injuries. You haven't played well in spots, but you're still in the NFL. You're a first-round draft pick. So I just don't understand, if this is true, why, right? If this is true. Now, if it's not true, or even if it still has to go to trial, I think that he deserves bond, right? No one died. There was no death in this situation. We've seen killers get off with bail, right? Or get released on bail. So I think at minimum he deserves to be out on bail while the trial, is ahead of him, or while he's waiting for trial. But it's just a mix of like back in the day when athletes want to be rappers and rappers want to be athletes, it meant totally something different.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the lifestyle, the exercise of being an athlete, the exercise of rapping, actually doing the activity. Now it's like the rappers want to be killers, the killers want to be rappers and athletes, and now the athletes want to be killers and robbers. Like, it's just a cohesion of mess.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, a cohesion of bullshit. And I just hope and pray that he gets away or gets off if it's not true. And if it is true, it's just stupidity, right? First off, you don't text your conspiracy.
Yeah.
That it's rule number one. And I'm not a criminal, but I know
Kinda
if
sounds
I
like
was
it.
going to commit a crime, I wouldn't write it down.
Any sort of plotting
Second
never
off,
needs to be done.
He ain't lying, and this is what I said at the very beginning. Like, this is all sorts of stupid. If you're going to go do something like this, if he is involved in something like this, first, why the F would you FaceTime it? And then why would you text? Like, you can't be that dumb to think that you would get away with it. And I'm going to say this. I said it the other day. I have a feeling, and I might be totally off on this. I might have watched too many criminal movies in my lifetime. It just seems like TA is set up. And I'm not saying set up by the state or set up by, some other factor, but by the people involved. You reported the incident, and this is what doesn't make sense. You report the incident of being robbed, and then you decide to go and take justice into your own hands, allegedly? You just got the police involved. They're going to be sniffing around, and then you decide to go. That right there doesn't make sense. That whole timeline is effed up. If you're going to go do something about it yourself, which I wouldn't advise, then you shouldn't have got the police involved. Because now they know something happened, and if something else happens like this, they're going to find out. That part doesn't make sense. So that leads me to believe that TA could be completely set up here. And I'm going to throw the stretch out there that, this alleged report that he was on the way back from Tallahassee with Boca High Hilton, who initially the prosecutor said was the ringleader of this whole thing, orchestrated the whole thing, gave the directions and, and whatnot, that he was allegedly with TA in the car in orchestrating everything. So if that's the case, why is it flipped now? And if Hilton hasn't asked for a plea deal, which all reports have showed none, then what's to say the TA wasn't hijacked, kidnapped himself and was being pinched for money? And maybe he was robbed by all these individuals, the individuals that were kidnapped, right? And everything else, those individuals were cleared by the prosecutor's office for not being involved in the robbery. So it almost sounds to me like these individuals robbed TA, allegedly, and then kidnapped TA, allegedly, and now trying to pin it on TA, allegedly. That's what makes more sense to me. And again, his attorney is trying to impeach the witnesses for what they said at the very outset when they were arrested, which is the right way to go about this. Now, I know that's a stretch, but is it really a stretch? Because the other thing that came to mind is the NFL phone. And I said this the other day too, and some of you also reacted to it. That phone should have been able to be tracked. And if that phone was not in Terry and Arnold's possession, where was it? Where is it? Has it been returned? Has it been found? It should, if it was left on at all, if it was ever turned on, it would ping and you'd be able to triangulate wherever that phone is. That's the unfortunate, method of our devices at this time. We can find anything now. So that part doesn't make sense. And then here's this last part. And I don't know if I said this yesterday. If you just FaceTime someone, how does that make them complicit? Right? if I were robbing a bank and I decided to FaceTime it to everyone in my address book, are they all now getting charged? Because that doesn't mean I watched it. Doesn't mean you watched it, right? Doesn't mean you said anything or acted on it. And if his phone was taken, if he didn't have his phone, and then they FaceTime Terrian's phone to make him be involved in it, you got to prove that he actually watched it. You have to prove that he actually sent that text, and they don't have that. There's no way you would have that information. There's no way to prove that TA texted anyone. There's no way to prove that he actually wanted the FaceTime unless there's, some sort of damaging, very damning information and evidence, like a video or audio that a linguistics expert can then say, yeah, that's TA. And lastly, none of these guys that were, beat up, kidnapped, robbed, none of them pointed out TA as one of the suspects, but all of the others were pointed out. I'm hoping the TA wasn't even in the state of Florida at this time, and that can be proven, but you would think that if that was proven already, he wouldn't be in this situation. So that may not be part of it. Let's take a quick listen to a couple more seconds here, what they have to say.
I wouldn't text anyone what I was going to write down.
Yeah.
So that's just dumb. It's dumb. If they find all this in text message and hold this bail against them because it was found in text in a group chat with multiple people, not one person you can trust, but a group chat. You can't even trust people to stay in the group chat.
See, that's the part that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I can't imagine the TA is that stupid. That he would send out all this information in text format that will always live. It'll always be there. It can be found. No matter what, if you delete it, if you burn your phone, it can be found. I promise you. We got clouds everywhere. All that information is going up to a cloud. Look, if they know that you just talked about, and you all know this, if you just went and talked about a shirt that you liked, in 5 minutes, when you go open your phone, you're going to have an ad for that same shirt. They know everything about us, and I don't know who they are. But there is nothing that you can do. You can't even take a shit without someone knowing what you're doing. So it would be just idiot. I mean, just an idiot move to do something like that. And I just can't believe the TA would do that. I can't. And if he did, my God, you're the dumbest criminal alive. If allegedly, reportedly, whatever you want to call it, if he's guilty.
People be leaving, kicked out, all types of shit. Other people joining. You put it in a group chat?
Here's the thing, bruh. T. Cook right there. Terry and Arnold play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and you're about to win the biggest, dumbest prize that a human can win. Congratulations. It's one thing to conspire against an individual. It's another thing to get caught for conspiring against an individual. It's another thing to be on FaceTime while conspiring against individuals who ultimately didn't even rob you. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, and you're about to have to pay the stupid tax. Except this stupid tax is so expensive, you might not even be able to bond your way out of this situation. It's a sad situation, but it's not a situation in which I can necessarily feel bad for an individual because this was so dumb. This is one of those situations where you simply watch too much TV, bruh. You watch too much TV. This was some television type stuff, Kieran. Like, this wasn't like a real situation. True story. I've never shared this story, I don't think, publicly before. My Airbnb got robbed before. Austin, Texas. I had 2 houses. The 2 houses were about 1,500 meters away from each other. It's a true story. I still got pictures on my phone, TJ. You'll be like, wait, what the hell? I go back into, I leave town maybe to go to, it was South by Southwest in Austin.
Yeah.
South by Southwest in Austin, you can rent out your house for real money.
Yeah.
I rented out my crib, 8 days, maybe like 6 days, $18,000. At the time, to Emmanuel Acho,
Some bread, yeah.
some real bread.
When you say like at the time, like
Just-
back when I was broke like you, that's a lot of money.
If I was in your shoes,
Yeah, your broke ass, that's a lot of money for you.
I know you can relate.
So look,
That's messed up.
this is a true story. Hey, so $18,000 I was going to get. I get back in town from leaving out of town, and the guest of my Airbnb, he texts me. He says, "Hey," he didn't text me. He texted my property manager, and he says, "Hey, can I stay in the house a little longer?" No, I'm back in town now.
Yeah.
I pull up to my crib, open the door. It's a mess. It's a mess, but everything seems fine, but it's a mess. I go to my closet. My closet is locked, and inside my closet is where I kept my valuables. All my bull rings at Texas, blah, blah, blah. Had 2 Rolexes, had cash in a safe. Boom. The lock had been messed with, Kieran, because I could see the paint had been moved from around the door handle, but it was still locked. We're good. Everything's good. We are a box cutter, matches, all types, but we're good. Ain't been hit. 2 days later, I'm packing to go to Houston. I go inside my closet. I get my Louis bag. About to put my Rolex on. The hell? Where my Rolex? Hold on. Where my other Rolex? Hold on. Where my bowl rings? I had $18,000 in the safe. Lord help me. Hold on. Where my money? I didn't go back and try to rob the cats that robbed me. You feel me? What I did was, okay, number one, Airbnb has insurance up to $100,000. Terry and Arnold. That's the first thing. So whatever is you can provide a receipt for or a forged receipt, Airbnb has insurance. Do that. First thing. Second thing is, hey, call the necessary enforcement officers that you got to call and be like, hey, G, can y'all figure this out? And when I called who I had to call, they said it's interesting what falls from a tree when you rattle it. That's what the cop told me back. It's interesting what falls from a tree when you rattle. At first, they called the individuals that were staying at the Airbnb. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. Then they subpoenaed the cell phone records and saw who was staying at the Airbnb, blah, blah, blah. Now, tension is, they didn't, unless you get robbed, TJ, you might know this, unless you get robbed for more than $50,000, it's a misdemeanor, not a felony. And as a result, they won't pay extradition because they don't want to spend as much money as it takes to extradite an individual. The dude who robbed me lived in Florida. They don't want to have to fly him from Florida to Austin with the police officer. It costs too much money. So like, sorry, Acho, unless the dude gets arrested in a neighboring state or gets his license run in a neighboring state to Texas, long story short, he's good. But Airbnb reinforced me. I say all that to say, Terry and Arnold, I've been in the position you've been in. Got hit for 2 rollies. And I had a picture of the dude leaving my house with the Rolex on and my scarf covering his face. I got a camera outside my crib. I got a picture of it still on my phone. I didn't go back and try to rob these dudes at gunpoint and record it. You feel me? Like, these aren't unique situations. This is just unique stupidity.
No, it's very dumb. I think.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We kind of get the sentiment here. I mean, they're saying the same thing. This is just absolutely idiot. It's just idiots making idiot moves. And furthermore, like, what about all of the players that have been robbed over the last couple of years? I mean, there's been dozens and dozens of NFL players, NBA players that have had their homes robbed. Not one of them is facing charges like this right now. They didn't make this stupid decision. And that's why I have a real hard time believing the TA would really do something like this, because it is so far outside the box of normal. Like, this would just tell me that the TA has some screws loose. That maybe he is, won the community over, but really underneath it all, he's just some demon monster guy that, criminal, allegedly. But I don't believe that either. I really don't. This just is so far outside the box. And Attila, to answer your question, the only reason why TA has been implicated at this point, based on what the reports have said, is because Ariana Del Val has struck a plea with the prosecutor's office. Like I mentioned earlier, her case was now, from facing life, is now 4 years in prison and 6 years of probation to be determined later, after the case with TA. So it's not uncommon that felons will snitch to get a reduced sentence. It's been happening for generations. But what's uncommon about this is if the prosecution had evidence against TA back in February, this is a non-issue right now. This isn't happening right now. TA would have been locked up back then. all of a sudden, after all these other people have been charged and heading off to prison, now you bring in TA? That doesn't make any sense. If they had evidence through text messages, if they had evidence through video or audio or any other mean, TA would have been incarcerated a long time ago. And that is why this really troubles me to think that this is something that he's done. That maybe he's the one that maybe he's the one that is being taken advantage of here. So we'll leave it at that. Outside of this, the NFL hasn't acted still. The criminal case, the Lions roster decisions, and the NFL disciplinary process, they're all three separate issues. And as of this morning, the NFL has not announced any sort of suspension or commissioner's exemption list or any other placement or roster designation involving Terry and Arnold from the team. Again, the Lions had not announced any transactions involving him either or any other players or confirmed any suspension. No confirmed exempt list, nothing. So at this point, it's kind of wait and see approach and see what the Lions do next. I have a sneaking suspicion that if he is held without bail, that there'll be some action. I think there'll be some action for both the NFL and from the Lions. What that is, I don't know, because they too need to be careful. And look, the Lions haven't been placed in this situation ever that I can think of. But man, there has been just an absolute storm of NFL athletes, this year for major crimes. There was a long list that I went through yesterday, and I forgot to save it. TA is at the top of the list. But you remember Henry Ruggs, right? He was sentenced to 3 years in prison back in 2003 for that felony DUI. But this year, and that was like one of the most recent major ones. But this year, let me get that list. Josh Jacobs, right? He was arrested and facing charges that included felony strangulation, domestic violence, 4 battery and domestic abuse misdemeanors. I'm not sure where that case is today. Alaric Jackson, the Rams offensive lineman, was arrested on charges of felony domestic violence. Jonathan Cooper from the Broncos, the linebacker, was arrested on allegations of domestic violence and criminal mischief. James Pierce Jr., like that one I believe happened in Florida as well. And he was arrested after allegedly ramming his girlfriend's vehicle and faces aggravated battery and stalking charges. Remember, all of that was pretty much thrown out the window. And I mean, he was in a major situation. And I can't remember if there was a gun involved in that or not. But he was or if they found one in the vehicle, and my memory's gray. So, but that was a major issue. Like, he was facing all sorts of counts. We thought his career was donezo. And then a couple months later, it's like, all goes away. What? Pretrial intervention program? I mean, ramming someone's car, you could even say that is, an act to attempted murder almost, right? Deshaun Watson, we know the whole thing with that. That was another major one, another major issue. But the NFL arrests are getting out of control this year. And most notably, it's TA's got the worst one. And there's more. I mean, there's some other ones. Let me see if I can get that list again. Nolan Smith, reckless driving. Quintavious Hutchins, Patriots, domestic assault and battery. Who else? Zachariah Branch, obstruction charges. I don't know how you got obstruction. That's just odd. Rasheed Walker, gun weapon charges. Jordan Addison, misdemeanor trespass. Marshawn Lattimore, weapons charges. And like I said, James Pierce Jr. was aggravated battery, stalking, fleeing police. And so a lot of these players getting off, and not having to go through the whole gamut. Here's what some of the fans said in some of the comments about TA. Now, some of these are going to be quite bad, so I apologize if you're around kids. You might want to throw some earbuds in. First comment by someone on this page here says, everyone had the same question after footage of Terry and Arnold's court appearance leaked online. And that question is what? Like, what was the question? Well, here we go. One comment read, "This gotta be a ritual. How the F dude got on a gown." Another one, wearing a turtle suit, suey or self-harm suit. Another user asked, why they got him in a turtle suit? And then someone else said, the American judicial system is a mother effer joke. Regardless what happened in retaliation, he doesn't deserve life sentence. Terry and Arnold is not a dangerous threat to society. I know it's wrong to take justice into your own hands, but let's get real. Get the F out of here. Another user said, his circle is trash, hot garbage. Not only did they not protect their moneymaker, they took him along a crime, knowing it was a felony charge, then snitched on him to get their self a lesser sentence. These young fellows need to make sure they have better circles. And I would agree with the last one. And matter of fact, there was an attorney that appeared on one of the news channels, and she said the same thing, that she tells her own kids, you know, you need to hang around the same people that have the same amount to lose, right? You know, if you're doing well in life, don't hang around riffraff. You know, don't put yourself in a situation where someone can not only, you know, ruin your life while they're ruining theirs. And I thought that was great advice for anyone. Like, you know, sometimes you just have that bad individual or maybe a bad friend or maybe someone that's just maybe not doing the best in life. Yeah, of course, help them, right? All about helping people, trying to do what you can. But if they don't help themselves, well, you don't want to take a bad opportunity and turn into a worse opportunity where your life is impacted. TA probably had nothing to do with any of these people, you know, after he made it to the NFL. I get it. You got some lifelong friends or whatever these people were to him. But man, if they are just troublemakers, you got to learn to grow up. You know, like you really just got to learn to grow up and surround these guys, you know, with better options and better choices. So it's really unfortunate. We'll take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about the cornerback depth that is now under pressure. And did Brad Holmes make a mistake? Did he do enough to help this team out with the whole TA situation that he had no clue was going to happen, right? Be right back. All right, up next, let's talk about Brad Holmes, and we're on the wrong overlay. Let's fix that first. Up next, let's talk about Brad Holmes, and did he do enough? We touched on the subject yesterday on whether he did enough while waiting, potentially, for something to come down the pike on TA. And I would say he didn't do anything wrong. I don't know how we can even blame Brad or Dan for any of this. It doesn't make any sense at all. But it is what it is. The legal process had to come first. The Lions didn't know that there was going to be a legal process. But the Lions cannot really delay their football planning. Like, it's business as usual. They can't waste any time on this. DJ Reed remains the established starter on one side, and if Arnold is unavailable, all signs pointing to that possibility, then the other outside corner position becomes one of Detroit's largest training camp competitions. And that is where the debate around Brad Holmes begins. Some fans believe Brad Holmes failed to prepare the team, and their argument is understandable, but I think it's idiotic. Detroit entered the offseason with questions surrounding Arnold. Amik Robertson left in free agency. The Lions did not spend a first, a second, or even a third-round pick that they didn't have on a cornerback. They did not sign another clear, high-level outside starter, or did they? Instead, Holmes assembled a collection of veterans on shorter contracts. He retained several developmental players and waited until the 5th round to draft Keith Abney II. If Arnold is unavailable and the defense struggles outside, then critics will say that the Lions knew uncertainty existed and still failed to secure a proven replacement. That is the case against Brad Holmes. But here's another side. Holmes did not ignore the secondary. He attacked it through the numbers, experience, and versatility. Detroit already had Reed under a 3-year contract as he is an established top outside corner. Holmes re-signed Rock Ya-Sin after Ya-Sin started 6 games for the Lions last season. He also signed Roger McCreary, a former second-round pick with starting experience outside and extensive work in the slot. He then signed Christian Izien, who can play nickel, safety, and special teams. He added a veteran in safety, Chuck Clark. He also re-signed Avonte Maddox, another player with experience at nickel and safety, and then drafted Keith Abney II, who played outside in college but can also compete on the inside. The versatility is wild. The Lions also added rookie defensive backs, Amarius Brown and Deshaun Rucker. Holmes may not have acquired another star, but he did build multiple layers of contingency. The fair criticism is that Detroit has plenty of options without having one obvious replacement for Arnold. The fair defense is that very few NFL teams carry 3 proven starting outside corners, the same argument that we've been making on the edge position. Holmes built a room capable of changing personnel packages, moving players between the slot and safety, and creating a legitimate competition outside of DJ Reed. Now the coaching staff has to prove the quantity and the versatility can become dependable production this season. I don't really know what else to say about this. I believe that Brad has done enough. And Detroit entered the offseason with that uncertainty. We understand that. The Lions allowed Amik Robertson to leave. We understand that. No premium draft pick was spent. We get that. But that doesn't mean that Brad Holmes failed. It's not like Brad didn't do anything. I think I just gave you 5 or 6 reasons as to what he did was the exact way to attack this situation, even though it doesn't even appear he was attacking that situation directly. Brad was building a team. He was building a defense for the changes into the nickel defense that we should see more this season. And that's probably the biggest point to take away from all of this. The more you're in nickel, I think the less you really need that star on the outside other than DJ Reed, right? You have plenty of guys that can fill the role. You have a lot more DBs on the field with speed and versatility that can contend against the weapons of the offense. So most of these additions were also 1-year veterans or developing players. So next year, yes, there could be a situation where we're limited and we'll probably have to spend an early round draft pick on bringing in another star. The room has plenty of depth. There's no obvious replacement equal to Terrion Arnold's projected role or projected 3rd year in the NFL. I think that Reed he's under contract for another 2 seasons. He's a veteran number 1 corner. Last year, he dealt with some injury, and that didn't bode well for the season for him. This year, we're expecting DJ Reed to get back to business. Rock Ya-Sin, one of the most underwhelming stories, I think, but should carry a lot of weight into the season for how he performed last season. He was retained, and after earning starts last season, he played extremely well. And then there's, Roger McCreary. Has the outside versatility very early in his career. I think back in 2022 was the last time that he played as a rookie on the outside primarily. I think it was over 600 snaps. And then he switched to safety. Then he switched to the nickel position and played a lot in the slot. But there's no reason why he couldn't push to outside corner if the Lions absolutely needed him to. Rock Ya-Sin is the clear winner right now of that position. And then you have Christian Izien. He can play slot. Right? He can play safety. He can play special teams. So he brought in a 3-way player. Not someone that I expect to play outside corner. And then Chuck Clark and Avonte Maddox adding veteran safety, ability and nickel flexibility was key, again, for this certain style of a defense that the Lions are going to be running this season. Those are 2 players that you needed. And Chuck Clark has already proven his veteran mentality and the way that he can lead from the front was very clear during minicamp. Avonte Maddox played extremely well in a position last year that he was not asked to do before. Last year was one of the first years that he played in the post. Keith Abney was drafted with experience outside and inside, and that is the player to watch in summer camp here starting in July. Brown and Rucker, I mean, those are players that could end up, as developmental depth somewhere on the practice squad, but nothing really to mention about those two players. And then there's Dennis Rakestraw. He remains a second-round investment that has had a little bit of trouble getting his career off the ground. But maybe in his third season, he'll start to fly. And if he does, well, Brad's going to look like a hero for spending 2 picks early in 2023 on 2 corners. And then you have Khalil Dorsey and Nick Whiteside. Whiteside really impressed during his time last season and provided the experience and the depth and the special teams value for both of those players. I would say that the Lions DB room is not only deep, but we have a lot of good players and a couple of them that are great. And even without Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph right now, I think the Lions have an answer to the secondary. And then that's the biggest question for me. I don't think that Brad Holmes needed to address the cornerback position as much as they needed to address the future at safety. So if there was one part of the argument that I could agree with, it would be not the TA situation. It would be the Kirby Joseph situation. I feel the biggest mistake made in the offseason was not bringing in a player like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in this year's draft, or going out and finding that next safety that can take Kirby's role and be just as good, if not better, than Kirby was, in some of his seasons. It's pretty hard to top a 10-interception season. So my question to you is, did Brad Holmes fail by not adding another proven veteran starter as a corner? Or does the depth chart that Brad Holmes has assembled really count as preparation if there is no clear replacement for Terry and Arnold? The depth and the versatility of all the players on the roster, clearly better than what we had last season. Which offseason addition gives you the most confidence that Detroit can handle the situation? For me, I like Keith Abney in the beginning. I'm hopeful that Dennis Rakestraw is going to put it together this year, but I'm overly confident in Rock Ya-Sin and what he can provide for the Lions here in 2026. So you guys let me know in the comments below and in the chat right now, what do you think about the argument? Did Brad Holmes do enough, or is there still more work to do? The secondary is fairly complete, right? Now, I didn't run through every single thing that these players can do. I started to touch on some of it yesterday. But if we look at DJ Reed and what he's able to provide, it's getting back to the player that he was, in 23 and in 2024. Last year was an anomaly for DJ Reed. My biggest bone to pick with Brad Holmes on players like this is not the player itself, it's the size. And where we got longer and more size on the edge, we get shorter on the corner. And that I just don't understand. I would love to see Brad step up with a little bit longer corners, bigger corners. Let's start getting the 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" guys that have the long, 32-inch arms, which is really long for a corner, that can contend and match up well with the receivers. That is my main sticking point with Brad Holmes, is that I want to see more length. However, you can't over-evaluate if you're a little bit short in the arm length, for a corner or a safety. If they play the position well, I mean, their body type and size doesn't matter, right? It's just, can they stay healthy? Can they take a hit? Can they give a hit? Can they tackle? Do they tackle well? Or do the short arms cause problems? And so those are all the same reasons why I look for bigger, longer corners. DJ Reed can play tight man coverage. He's done it. He can play off coverage. He can play in the zone. And he matches up with receivers on the perimeter. So I think that we have a good number one. Rock Ya-Sin, very physical veteran outside corner with starting experience. He offers press man ability, matchup experience, and special teams value. Ennis Rakestraw. We don't know enough about Ennis Rakestraw yet because he just hasn't done enough. He likes to play physical. But when he came in his rookie year, it seemed like his physicalness was present during preseason, but quickly subsided because he kept getting injured, and he needed to add some weight, some muscle, some strength, and all reports are saying that that's what he's done this season. As a former second-round pick, a lot of us have high hopes for Ennis Rakestraw, but I think that we're all a little bit on the other side of it as well, that maybe he might not be the answer. We'll find out soon enough. His largest challenge is just remaining on the sideline, on the field, and remaining healthy. Roger McCreary, again, he enters camp as the leading nickel candidate. He has started outside in the NFL. He can move back into the perimeter if the Lions need him. And then there's Keith Abney. There's a lot to say about Keith Abney soon, but we just don't know enough about him yet. We'll see how he fits outside. But I do expect Keith Abney to get a lot of reps early in camp on the outside to compete for that starting spot opposite of DJ Reed or behind Rocky Sin. Next up, let's get into the safety conversation because that's the last line of defense. And if you have a good safety room, well, maybe the corner position isn't as big of a glaring hole right now, or what is a perceived hole. I don't think it is. I think that we're good. But Joseph was the primary deep safety and the center field ball hawk. His range, his ability to track the quarterback, it really allows the Lions to stay aggressive underneath. Without him on the field, it changes the dynamic in a hurry. That is the player that I would have replaced. That is the player that I would have had a plan for, because right now he has not touched the field. And if he is not able to play, or if he only plays a couple of games, that to me is the biggest mistake. Replacing him with Chuck Clark could be a huge benefit to the Lions roster. He's an experienced safety. He can play deep. I mean, it's like 7-8 years in the league, and he's played fairly well. But he can play deep. He can play in the box. He can play near the line of scrimmage. He can do it all, and he's an amazing communicator. He has handled the communication responsibilities and can work in dime packages as needed. Then we have Thomas Harper. All right, Harper came around last season. He was a reserve safety with experience. He's contributed on special teams. His path to the roster really depends on reliability with Kirby Joseph, communication, and his coverage unit value. I would say right now he's probably a lock to make this roster along with Chuck Clark and to the latter, Kirby Joseph. We just don't know what's going to happen until training camp hits. Dan Jackson. Last season, the Lions drafted him, I believe, was 7th round draft pick. He's a very young safety who projects best as playing in the box or a little bit closer to the box. He can support the run. He competes on special teams, and right now they're developing him behind Detroit's veterans. And then you have Lauren Strickland, who's been around this team for about 3 seasons now. He brings a very physical presence in the safety position and some special teams value. So I would say that the safety position is probably the one that I would be most concerned about. However, we brought in some guys that can play all of those positions. We just don't really have the post other than Chuck Clark that seems to be well defined. And that is my major sticking point again with Brad Holmes is what are we doing, behind Chuck Clark? What are we doing behind Kirby Joseph? If one of those players is down, well, Chuck Clark gets inserted. What happens if Chuck Clark goes down? Who do we have in the post? That's a pretty tough position to play. Not anyone can just play the post. So that brings me to the defensive change, right? That's where being in a nickel in a 2-high safety shell or, a 2 medium or whatever, that is where not relying on the post is all the difference this year for the defense. If we're in a consistent 2 safety shell, then the post won't be needed as much. But when you're not running a single high safety, at times in the way that this defense has been run, it can detract from the rush or from the run defense. So we'll see how that blends together. My overall takeaway, we don't lack bodies, right? We lack a little bit of experience, and we don't really lack any positional flexibility. I think we have plenty. It's just that unresolved question on whether the Lions have a second outside corner or do we have that next post player that can replace Kirby Joseph if he goes down. So those are my biggest questions. But I do believe that Rocky Sin's going to have a big opportunity here this season. So my question to you is, was corner the problem? Or should safety been more addressed? Because good safety help, you can have a little lesser of a corner there on the outside. So that's my question to you guys. Who do you want to start opposite of DJ Reed right now? Should Arnold be unavailable, expected to be unavailable? And if it's not Rocky Sin, who would it be? Who would it be? NFC North is going to attack. I can guarantee you that. But first, let's talk about Sam Laporta. All right, Scotty the Max says, I like Chuck. He has mismanaged. He just mismanaged re-signing guys in the 90s. I'm not sure what you mean by that, buddy. I like Chuck. He just mismanaged re-signing guys in the 90s. I don't know what that means, buddy. I don't have any thoughts on Deshaun Rucker, Attila. I got nothing on the dude right now. We got to wait and see. We got to wait and see how he develops. Really, I haven't seen anything. You know, I think camp is it. What else to do? John Desage says still more work to do. Now the TA is going to be gone or likely to be gone. Yeah, I would agree. There's still some work to do. I just don't know how soon. How soon they're going to be acting. Scotty the Max, Brad still has time to add another cornerback. He does. I'm looking to 90-man cuts. That's where Brad seems to spend some time and has the scouts, obviously doing their work. When some players do become available after 90-man cuts, that's my expected deadline for Brad this year. I think that, between now and camp, if he adds another body, obviously you have to fill out your 90-man. But if he adds another body, I think it's just to get through camp. It could be another quarterback. But when you get to the 90-man cuts late in August, I think that's where Brad's going to strike. I think he's going to find some players or a player or two or three, who knows, that could fit this defense and or the offense, depending on what we need going into the season. I really love how people use hindsight 2020 to think that they knew that something was going to happen with TA. Like, come on, you're not fooling anybody. You're not fooling anybody. Nobody knew. Oh, big news. Hey, if you guys need new Oakley sunglasses right now, go to oakley.com. You got 25% off and 25% off custom. So if you need some new sunglasses, not a sponsor of today, but they just sent me a message. All right, let's get into Sam Laporta. All right, so actually, give me one sec. All right, the Detroit Lions got some big moves to make here this season with plenty of contracts. Players that they need to sign from 2023 include Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, among others, Jahmyr Gibbs. Kyle Pitts, in his new contract with Atlanta, is a major inflection point for Sam Laporta and the Detroit Lions. The Falcons gave Pitts a 3-year, $54 million contract that breaks down to an average of $18 million per season. That deal did include $36 million of fully guaranteed money over the first 2 seasons. So that puts Pitts just behind George Kittle and Trey McBride in annual value among NFL tight ends. It also establishes a clean negotiating floor for Sam Laporta and his agency. Pitts was the 4th overall pick in 2021. He was expected to totally revolutionize what the position was at the tight end position, but he just hasn't. None of that has really come to fruition for Kyle Pitts yet. He hasn't really done a whole lot in his career to date, and they sure paid him like he did. Laporta was the 2nd-round selection in 2023, and he has far surpassed what Pitts did, even as a rookie. And when Sam Laporta is healthy, you can't deny that he is a top 3, top 4 tight end in the league. The draft status no longer really controls the conversation for either of these players, but especially for Sam Laporta. The production, the age, the role, the future value, that's what controls it now. Pitts had the stronger 2025 season, largely because Sam Laporta, well, he was injured, and Kyle Pitts earned a second-team All-Pro recognition. Laporta has a stronger 3-year touchdown production and has produced nearly identical reception and yardage totals despite playing 9 fewer games, and that is huge. The fact that those two have very similar production and Sam Laporta has not been in 9 games, That tells you how much better Sam Laporta really is over Kyle Pitts. Now, Laporta is also a more complete fit for the Lions and for many teams, and what they ask him to do as a tight end. He can line up attached to the formation. He can move into the slot. He can work across the formation. He can block in the run game and become a primary red zone target. He's also the chain mover. And, in 2025, his back injury, well, it stopped all of that. And that is where you saw the chain stop moving on third down. But Pitts, in his contract, really removed any realistic chance of extending Laporta into that $16 million or $17 million range. I think now the floor, well, if Pitts is worth $18 million, then Sam Laporta is definitely worth the same. And with $36 million fully guaranteed, Laporta's representatives can easily and reasonably begin their argument at $19 million and push towards $20 million per season. Now, again, Pitts received 3 years, $54 million. His $18 million annual value ranks near the top of the position. I believe it's number 3. The contract, which includes $36 million fully guaranteed, is now the major talking point for Sam Laporta. It creates that floor that we're talking about. Again, Laporta has a stronger touchdown production and, honestly, the stronger production overall. And had he played the same amount of games, he would have exceeded what Kyle Pitts has done to date. Now, it's the back injury that I think you have to ask the big question. How does that change the negotiation? If the Lions were to get that deal done now, does that mean that they're trying to capitalize on the back injury to force that number to shrink? I would say yes. But if this carries into the regular season and Sam Laporta plays just like Sam Laporta has into the level that he can play, I don't think the back is going to become a problem. Sam Laporta is also attending tight end university this summer, and I think that tells you that he's healthy enough to get out there and run around. He has been fairly limited through minicamp and OTAs, but now he's going to get an opportunity to run through tight end university and then make it back for camp here in July, and he should be ready to roll. Sam Laporta is a complete offensive, nightmare for a lot of teams. It's pretty hard, looking at this offense, which ranks number 1 now, according to ESPN and myself, as the most weapons of any offense in the league. Him on the field changes the dynamic on every play, but especially third down. So my question to you is, do you think that Sam Laporta is going to have a larger contract than Kyle Pitts, or do you think he's going to have a lesser contract because of the injury? Now, Laporta versus Pitts. Let's kind of compare these two a little bit. The 3-year numbers show how close these players are in receptions and yardage. They also show Laporta's clear advantage in scoring production. In 2023, Sam Laporta, he completely broke the NFL with how well he was playing. 86 receptions, 889 receiving yards, and 10 TDs. I think he ranked 5th overall in the history of the NFL for a rookie season. And then in 2024, 60 receptions, 726 yards, 7 touchdowns. A little bit less production, but he also missed a couple of games, I believe, to that knee injury that was a little bit later in the season. And then in 2025, Sam Laporta missed a large part of the season with only 40 receptions, 489 yards, and 3 touchdowns in just 9 games. His 3-year total, 186 receptions, 2,104 receiving yards, and 20 TDs. That is not a small number. 42 games played. Against Kyle Pitts, it's a much different story. Kyle Pitts only had 53 receptions, about 36 less than Sam Laporta did in his rookie year. He had 667 yards, about 200 less compared to Sam Laporta in his rookie year. And he only had 3 touchdowns in his rookie season in 2023. Sam Laporta had 10. Kyle Pitts in 2024, 47 receptions, again, less than Sam Laporta, 602 receiving yards, and only 4 touchdowns. And then in 2025, he finally emerged and broke out. Kyle Pitts went for 88 receptions, 928 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. And that number, that year, closely compares to what Sam Laporta did as a rookie. Still 5 touchdowns less. His 3-year total, 188 over 2197 and 12 TDs. Very close, but he also played in 51 games compared to 42 for Sam Laporta. When I break the two down and I compare them and trying to understand where's the leverage for the Lions, where's the leverage for Sam Laporta, it's this clear. Pitts has 2 more receptions. That's it. He has 93 more receiving yards. Not a whole lot. and Laporta has 8 more touchdowns in 9 fewer games. And Sam Laporta has produced these numbers consistently throughout his career. The Pitts breakout in 2025, it deserves credit. But Sam Laporta did that in 2023 as a rookie. Had he stayed healthy, Sam Laporta probably would have continued to eclipse what he did the year before. I expected Sam Laporta to carry about 900 yards a season. Well, we've got to get back to that here in 2026. The complete player, the complete 3-year comparison, I think that it supports Sam Laporta's argument that he should be the number one or the highest paid tight end currently in the league. He's produced almost the same amount of yardage receptions, even in with the fewer games. He has also been the more effective scoring threat. Detroit can point to the back injury that reduced his workload in 2025, and they could also point to the back injury as a concern moving forward, which could lessen the amount of guaranteed money in his deal. Laporta's side can also point to his total body of work, age, efficiency, and importance within the offense far outweighs what Kyle Pitts has done to date. The negotiation stands as this. Should the conversation begin above Kyle Pitts' $18 million annual average? And I would say yes. Overall, which player would you rather build an offense around for the next 4 years? Sam Laporta or Kyle Pitts? Y'all heard me in the offseason. If there was a player that I wanted to bring in, it was Kyle Pitts. I didn't think that he was going to get a penny over $15 million, but clearly he's been paid for what they think he can do based on his last season and now what he has done over the total 3 years that he's been in that offense. So projecting Sam Laporta's contract, I think that, based on the Spotrac current market and model projection, Laporta is in the neighborhood of a 4-year, $80 million deal. That's right, $20 million a season, which would make him the highest paid tight end in the league. Based on Pitt's contract, I think that Laporta's 3-year production and that projection for the contract is very reasonable. My projected structure would be a 4-year, $80 million extension. It would also include a $20 million signing bonus. It would also include $40 million in fully guaranteed money at signing, and would also include approximately $48 million in total guarantees. That $20 million signing bonus would be part of the $80 million total. Now, there would be some additional money on top of that contract, or it would not be, additional money on top of the contract. Detroit could pay the bonus immediately while spreading the salary cap charge across the remaining years of Laporta's rookie contract and the 4-year extension seasons. Now, that would allow the Lions to reward Laporta now without creating a full cap hit burden in 2026. So the length, 4 years, total new money, $80 million, average annual value, $20, signing bonus, $20, fully guaranteed, $40, and the practical guarantees of approximately $48 million. Contract control, the Lions would have Sam Laporta through the 2030 season. So you tell me, is that too much to pay for Sam Laporta? Are you looking for his future production? Are you worried about his back? To me, I'm worried about the back, right? I'm worried about what that could look like, this season or next season if he has another problem. Backs are a fickle beast, man. I feel like back injuries in the NFL, sometimes they rear their ugly head more often than not. But to pay him out and to pay throughout this structure, I think that the Lions would benefit from getting him on a 4-year deal. Maybe $80 million is way too much. And most agents and players love a 3-year deal because they want to benefit from another payout later. 4 years locks him in. It locks him in with a lot of the other players that are already signed for the Detroit Lions, and it keeps, the big-time playmakers on this team together at least through 2030. So if he remains on his rookie salary and receives a $20 million signing bonus immediately in 2026, then that bonus will be prorated across the next 5 cap years, keeping the first-year cap increase very manageable. And as we all know, the Lions are managing roughly $18.5 to $19 million in cap availability today. This would be in 2027. It would give them an $8 million in guaranteed signing or roster money, if you will, with approximately $4 million. This is compared to Kyle Pitts' roster, by the way, or Kyle Pitts' contract. Approximately a $4 million of the signing bonus would be prorated. The cap number would land around $12 million. So not a bad deal. If you were to do this deal for Sam Laporta, next year wouldn't be a burdensome contract, and the Lions could still fit what they have to fit with Jahmyr Gibbs and potentially Brian Branch as well. So you guys let me know in the comments below, And in your chat right now, is Sam Laporta going to break the bank? Or will he get, a team-friendly deal because of the back injury? Either way, I'd like to see Sam Laporta stick around. But maybe the Lions need to invest, and they will need to invest because that's the next topic in Brock Wright. Brock Wright, I believe, is on his final year of his contract. So it's now time for the Lions to look forward to bringing in another tight end. Exactly why I wanted them to bring in Max Clare for this season, and they decided not to. I'm really surprised that they didn't bring in a rookie tight end this year, especially given the situation with Sam Laporta and his back injury. But we'll see where it all develops, and we'll be paying close attention this season. All right, lastly, for the day, ESPN. Let me get to this note here. I might get to Derek Moore, too. Come on, where is it? A lot of notes. A lot of notes. Earlier I did mention, too, that, the NFC North, clearly they know us well, right? So before I get to the ESPN statement, the NFC North is a gauntlet this year. It has been a gauntlet for the last couple of seasons. I mean, the Lions have reigned supreme over the last, 3.5 seasons, 4 seasons, whatever it's been. Last year, we fell off the wagon a little bit. But if the big changes that are happening with our secondary right now, if there's any weak link, expect not just the NFC North, but every team to attack us. And that's where I think that we have to really stiffen up on the outside and make sure that we have, safety help. And I think that's where the nickel, I really believe that's where the nickel defense is going to help us the most this year, is being able to provide some overwatch behind our corners and put them in a better situation with, guys closer to help make a play. Detroit's weapons, man, they're ranking first according to ESPN. And while the defense works through some uncertainty in areas, I think the defense is going to be extremely well as well. But the Lions offense and their talent really continues to receive major national recognition this week. I talked about it a couple of times that I don't see another team in the league that has anything close to what we have in Detroit. And ESPN analyst Bill Barnwell ranked the Lions' combined running backs, wide receivers, tight ends as the best collection of offensive weapons in the NFL. Agree or disagree? Do you feel like we have the best? I mean, why wouldn't you? The argument begins with Jahmyr Gibbs, who is arguably top 2, if not going to be the best running back in the league this year. Gibbs can attack defenses as a runner, as a receiver. He's a movable matchup piece. You can put him anywhere on the field and he's going to make plays. He forces linebackers, he forces the safeties to really defend the entire field, which opens up more opportunity for guys underneath. And then there's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's still Detroit's most dependable, capable, high-volume target and the number 1 wide receiver. And each and every season over the last few seasons, he's produced some of the best numbers in the league. He wins underneath, he works through traffic, and he gives Jared Goff a reliable answer when the offense needs to stay on schedule. He's always there. He's always ready. Last year he had a couple of drops just like everybody else, but it really wasn't out of the norm given the situation that the Lions were in. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the most trusted wide receiver in the league. Then there's Jameson Williams. He really starts to change the coverage before the ball's even snapped, utilizing his speed and his now, relationship with Jared Goff. They've clicked. And his speed really forces defense to protect the deep portion of the field, and it creates a lot of operating room underneath for Jared Goff to find the players like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jahmyr Gibbs. And then there's Sam Laporta, the guy we just got done talking about in his potential new contract, but he's a chain mover. He's always been a chain mover, and he's always been in a position to make big plays. He really attacks the linebackers at times and the safeties through the middle of the field. And when he's starting to drag those guys back, right, and starts to open up and stretch that field vertically, and then you have players like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs spreading that field horizontally, well, now you got wide open options for guys like JMO to do a little drag route and take it to the house. So when healthy, Sam Laporta, he gives Jared Goff another dependable target on third down and in the red zone, but he can be utilized pretty much anywhere at any time. The largest question around the league, or around the edges of the group, Isaiah Pacheco, right? He's got to help replace the physical rushing element that David Montgomery left behind. And then also the dependable receiver depth behind their established starters. Drew Petzing is not inheriting, a rebuilding project. He was just given the keys to a Ferrari. He needs to produce. He's taking over one of the NFL's deepest and most versatile collections of offensive talent in the NFL. His challenge, Drew Petzing's challenge, I think, is going to be adding his own ideas without disrupting the timing element. And I don't think that that's going to happen. But the balance, the identity of this offense, a team in an offense that has already made Detroit difficult to defend, I think he's going to be able to make it better. So ESPN ranked Detroit's skill position group first. Again, Gibbs will threaten everywhere around the field. St. Brown, Williams, Laporta, Pacheco, Petzing. The biggest question is the offense, or the offensive line. So do you truly believe that the NFL's best collection of offensive weapons is in Detroit? Why or why not? Let me know. And then the offensive line, which really is the catalyst for how everything is going to move forward this season. Can that offensive line be the offensive line that it was in 2023, or even better in 2024? And if they can, well, just how amazing will this offense be here this season? Will they be the number one offense in the league? I think that they have a legit shot to do it. Everyone stays healthy with Drew Petzing's opportunity to really, change this offense for the better over last season. I think the Lions are looking good here for 2026, and no doubt as to why I believe and agree with Bill Barnwell that the Lions have the number one offensive weapons in 2026. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below in the chat right now. Are the Lions number one? If not, why? Like, who wouldn't be number one in your mind this season? All right, what else you guys want to chat about before I get out of here? I think breakfast is calling me, so I want to get out of here quickly. J Mommy says it's a stat fact that the Lions have the most weapons. Fenix says, I'm going to get working on your sizzle reel and get to shopping for deals. Hey, while you're at it, you can send me one too. Next week, I sent Eric a couple of things. If you guys haven't seen it, go to, here, I'll show you. You're going to want to go to, I don't know if there's still Prime going on, but these things were not a part of Prime. But I sent these to Eric, and I absolutely love them on Amazon. These things are cool. It's a game, and it has a practical purpose. Oh, there is a little Prime deal today, a whole $1 off. Check these out. Oh, come on, where is it? Oh, whatever. Hold on. Check these things out. Oh, what's wrong here? It's all cut off. Here, I'll just scroll down a little bit. Pump it up. These Lions cups right here. These are aluminum. These are aluminum cups, and it's Top Cup, so it's a game. I don't drink alcohol, but, I mean, if you want to play the game. But the Top Cup, NFL Detroit Lions, are only $25, and you get 20-ounce reusable aluminum cups. So they're not going to break, right? They're great for parties. They're great for tailgates. And if you want to play the game, you can play the game. But go check them out on Amazon. I probably should have done an affiliate link for this, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll throw an affiliate link in the description or something. But I'm gonna make sure I get some. But I sent those to Eric, and he said he thought they were pretty cool. But I also sent him something else. So we're gonna have a different look, hopefully on Tuesday, assuming everything gets delivered on time. Did you guys shop Prime Day deals? Oh, they even have some. They have Top Cup without the name, without any logos. They're only $13.59. Maybe we should make some custom Rock Down ones. That would be kind of cool. We could do some giveaways. They got the Big Lions tumbler right now. 30-ounce tumbler for only $20. It's a good deal. What else do they got? What the old one? Well, I like this One Pride Tervis one. That one's only $23. Look at this one. This one's badass. And One Pride cup. I have the 20-ounce. I have the same one, but it's a different version. That's on sale for $23. We got all kinds of cool stuff. Got the glitter one or whatever that is. I have this one right here, this black one. Anyway, pretty cool stuff, man. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff on Amazon this week. Yeah, I think I should make some Rocked On cups. We got a sticker machine, a vinyl sticker machine now. Megan's been cranking out some stickers. And we're going to make some stickers for the show. We're going to make some stickers for giveaways. We're going to do, I'll start working on them here soon. But, like face stickers. Like they sell, like you can wear an under eye patch. Or whatever. You get like 6 of them, I think, for like $12. I think we can do better than that. And we'll do some sticker packs. Cool stuff for kids. But when I have the tailgates, we're going to have a lot of that stuff available for people. Really pissed that we didn't get this house, man, because that house was going to provide so much opportunity. So much opportunity. It's really going to be hard to find another house like that or build one. But to replace that house is probably going to be $1 million build, and I just don't think that's equitable to do. So anyway, I'm out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. A lot of information, kind of the same information that's been flying around. I agree, with what a lot of people have been talking about, and how this OTA thing is just absolute stupidity. I really have a lot of questions that are going to go unanswered, I'm sure, but something just doesn't seem right with that case. It just seems like, you've got this guy hemmed up, and we have yet to hear of any real evidence. There's been talks of the text messages, but they've had that stuff, man. They've had that stuff. Like I said earlier, it doesn't take 4 months to get text messages. As a prosecutor, you can file your warrant to get the text messages, to get the information from Google or Apple or wherever, and they have to comply. All right, they have to comply within a certain amount of time. It could be 7 days, it could be 14 days. So, and there were, whether there was a hearing over it, if they contended it, I doubt it. Like Google, Apple, they're going to hand the information over. So I can't imagine that there's really anything new that wasn't discovered by March of this year, even mid-March of this year. It's the testimony of the plea deal by this Ariana Del Val that is now placed TA, in jail and awaiting trial. So it's unfortunate. It really is. But it's also stupidity if he did do something. So hopefully he didn't. All right, y'all. We'll catch you on Monday. Might pop up throughout the weekend, but we'll see. But either way, we'll be back Monday. Tuesday, Eric will be back. I'm sure he'll want to rediscuss all this again with TA, but hopefully we have some new information and or some new things to talk about. Monday, I will be here because we're going to watch the live pretrial detention, assuming it's going to be live. I still got to figure that out. And hopefully I get the answer back from that county as to why he's in a damn turtle suit. I don't know that they can release that information, but we'll see. We'll see if they play ball. All right, y'all. Take care. Go in pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you guys in the next one. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Don't be stupid. Don't record stuff. Adios.